Good morning, North Florida. This is Dr. Ryan Truchelut of WeatherTiger, and this morning I'm bringing you a landfall forecast, walking you through the impacts in terms of wind, surge, rainfall, and tornado threat from Tropical Storm Fred, which is on final approach to the Panhandle coast. So I'm going to wait just a minute for the audience to filter in here, and I will start the forecast in just about 1 minute. Okay, let's begin. Good morning again, North Florida. This is Dr. Ryan Truchelut of WeatherTiger, and I'm here today to give you the very latest on Tropical Storm Fred, a strong tropical storm which is on final approach to the Panhandle coastline this morning. So feel free, as you're watching this video, to type in your questions, and I will attempt to answer some of them at the end of this forecast. So this is Tropical Storm Fred this morning, and if you looked at Fred last night and looked again this morning, well, it looks much more like a healthy tropical storm. There's a lot of convective activity around the center of circulation, and it's all moving north towards the Panhandle this morning. So let's jump right in on the new advisory package from the National Hurricane Center, and there's a couple things that they want to highlight as their key messages, their key risks. The number one key risk that they want to highlight is the potential for Fred to bring flash flooding, inland river flooding, to portions of the southeast, including North Florida, as well as eastern Alabama and western Georgia. The second key point they want to make sure that everyone is aware of is the potential for dangerous storm surge of 3 to 5 feet, especially in Apalachee Bay. We'll get to that specifically later on in the forecast, but surge is a key threat here as well. And the third key point are tropical storm conditions, winds exceeding 40 miles an hour already spreading onshore in North Florida, and that's also a threat as well. Not as big of a threat as surge or flash flooding, but it is something that they want people to be aware of course. So this is the new 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Time advisory. This area outlined here in orange are the radii of tropical storm force winds exceeding 40 miles an hour. And as you can see, Fred is just centered about 50 miles or so south and west of Apalachicola, or about 70 miles currently due south of Panama City. Motion is north at 10 miles an hour. Maximum sustained winds are up to 60 miles an hour. They were 40 to 45 miles an hour yesterday, so Fred has intensified overnight. National Hurricane Center forecast brings Fred onshore in the Panama City region later this afternoon, and then brings it north and northeast inland over the deep south. Let's go through the current watches and warnings, because there's a lot of them in effect for all of the Panhandle. This area that's outlined here in these deep and dark reds, that's an area of tropical storm warning. So these areas, counties highlighted in red, have inland tropical storm warnings, as well as the coastal warnings extending all along Apalachee Bay, all the way east to Yankeetown, I believe. So Tallahassee, you are under an inland tropical storm warning. Bainbridge, Mariana, Panama City, even Dothan are all under inland tropical storm warnings, indicating the potential for wind gusts exceeding 40 miles an hour in these areas through the afternoon today. These areas that are highlighted in yellow, there's some overlap here, but there's also a tornado watch in effect for roughly this region, and I'll get to that specifically later as well. And these areas that are highlighted here in purple, those are the areas of active storm surge warning, where there's the potential for 3 to 5 feet of surge through the afternoon today. So here's that watch box specifically for the tornado watch. In that area, you need to be on alert for potential tornado warnings through the day today. There are no tornadoes currently, but a tornado watch indicates that there is certainly the potential for multiple tornadoes within the watch box through the day today. So have a way of receiving a tornado warning and be ready to seek shelter if you receive a tornado warning. So let's take a quick look at what's going on with Fred right now. There is an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft that's flying around in Fred, taking measurements of its wind field as well as its as where the center is located, and we can see that the last few times that they've crossed through the center, basically Fred is moving almost due north at this point. It doesn't really have any remaining westward motion, and if you kind of extrapolate that movement out, it's heading essentially straight for the Panama City region. The hurricane hunters, as they've been flying around, have found wind speeds aloft of around 70 miles an hour. If you kind of convert that to what it is at the surface, likely based on those winds aloft, you're getting sustained winds of 60, 65 miles an hour. So currently, maximum sustained winds from the NHC are 60. The NHC forecast does allow for a little more intensification, up to maybe 65 or 70 mile an hour sustained winds by landfall, based on these recon observations. So here's kind of an overlay of some of the live winds with radar, the NHC cone, and the tropical storm warning region outlined in purple. And there are already tropical storm force winds on the coast. You can see that the St. George Island Bridge weather stem station has been receiving tropical storm force winds for the last several hours, including a wind gust of up to 57 miles an hour. This buoy, which is now south of the center of Fred, has also received wind gusts of up to 65 miles an hour as it passed. And there's that wind plot for that buoy. They got sustained winds on the order of 55 miles an hour, gusts to around 65. Here's a live look at the St. George Island weather stem. Currently, they're getting east winds 40 miles an hour, gusting to 52. They've had gusts of up to 57 this morning. So tropical storm force winds on the coast in Appalachia Bay, as well as further west in the Panhandle. Take a look at the visible satellite imagery. This just shows that Fred has wrapped up quite a bit. It now has an area of deep convection, not only east of the center as it was yesterday, but kind of wrapping around at least a little bit to the west, as well as to the east and north of the center of circulation. So that's a better organized storm than it was 24 hours ago, hence the intensification. Switching over to infrared, you can see that those storms, the convection bubbling up around the center, is very deep and intense, and that's been allowing Fred to intensify somewhat overnight. Does not appear to be continuing to intensify right at the moment. Pressure readings from the recon aircraft have been stable the last couple times through the center. So we may be plateauing here at strong tropical storm intensity. Switching over to the radar, you can kind of see why maybe Fred is starting to plateau in intensity as a strong tropical storm. You can see that there's that deep convection. There's heavy rainfall now, basically along the entire coastline of Appalachia Bay, as well as west of Panama City Beach. And it's this big band right in here that's going to do the worst weather as it advances north through the day today. But you can also see that there's not much rainfall now immediately south and east of the center. What's happening is that some drier air is being pulled into the center of circulation, and it's causing a dry slot here on the southern and eastern side. So if you were going to see this storm really continue to intensify and intensify rapidly, that dry air is going to inhibit that. So that's a good thing. I think hopefully it means that we're not going to reach hurricane intensity with Fred. Anything is possible, but right now that dry slot's probably going to keep intensity in the 60 to 70 mile an hour range at landfall. So let's go through the impacts one by one. I'm going to start with storm surge because storm surge is one of the primary hazards of hurricanes and tropical storms, and this case is certainly true in this case as well. This is the region highlighted in purple is the region of the storm surge warning from the National Hurricane Center. So all of Appalachia Bay essentially under a storm surge warning, highlighting the threat for 3 to 5 feet of storm surge, basically from Indian Pass all the way to Steinhatchee. And that's because we have a pretty long fetch here of winds out of the southeast coming into a southeast facing coastline. So when those two things happen, that's you have the wind direction perpendicular to the shore. It's really pushing that water towards the coast. We can take a live look at how the surge is looking. There's not too many tidal gauges along Apalachee Bay that report in real time, but we'll take a look at the one in Apalachicola. There's Apalachicola's current water level. Currently, they're running about 2.5 feet of surge. We're going through high tide, and tide's going to start to head towards low tide as we go through the afternoon, so that will help them somewhat, but we are about 2.5 feet currently at Apalachicola above normal high tide. So 3 to 5 feet is the possibility there as that big band of rainfall comes through. So we'll talk about the wind threat. Here's the surface circulation. Here's the center of circulation of Fred and that surface wind field. These greens and yellows, this area kind of right in here, that's your area of tropical storm force winds sustained. And if you switch it over to a live analysis field of what that looks like, these areas in the orange and red are areas where we're seeing active tropical storm force winds, at least in gusts. So this is the forecast from the National Weather Service for maximum gusts through Fred. As of about an hour ago, this was the National Weather Service forecast. And you can see the areas where kind of that red touches the coastline between essentially Seaside and St. Mark's. Those areas have the potential to see wind gusts as Fred comes ashore on the order of mid-50s, lower 60s along the immediate coastline. Further inland for Tallahassee, National Weather Service forecast is for top gusts right around 40 miles an hour or tropical storm force, probably with those bigger bands that come through in the afternoon. Wherever kind of the core or half core of Fred comes ashore, that area may see more of the kind of 45 to 50 plus mile per hour gusts inland, but that's probably going to be for Panama City and then heading up, unfortunately, up towards Mariana, kind of right in the Michael Scar, right where you don't want to see sustained winds of anything. But unfortunately, that's how it is with this storm. So we'll switch it over to wind, or sorry, I'm switching over to the rainfall impacts. Again, there's a widespread area across North Florida of 3 to 6 inches of rainfall. That's going to be through the next 12 to 24 hours primarily. Heaviest right along the track and just east of it. Tallahassee probably going to land in the 3 to 5 inch range. Panama City up to Dothan 4 to 6 inches. And that here's a little more localized look at that, and it's those areas kind of between around Panama City, I'd say 50 miles west of Panama City, 75 miles, 100 miles east of Panama City that are going to be seeing the heaviest rainfall of 4 to 6 inches plus. And that adds up to the potential for flash flooding, basically right in the western Panhandle. Tallahassee, too, does have a chance of flash flooding, but those risks are most concentrated to the west of Tallahassee. And then finally, we'll look at the tornado threat. These areas highlighted in yellow are areas that could see tornadoes. We'll switch back to the tornado watch area, and you can see that's centered on Tallahassee, so have a way of receiving warnings. And it's really these little cells embedded in that band. Any one of those could spin up a quick tornado. I do want to check to see if there's any active warnings right now. I don't think there are at last check. So anyway, final thing I want to talk about is timing. This is essentially where Fred is right now, and it's going to move north and make landfall somewhere in the Panama City region around 4 o'clock central. And so the worst impacts, if we switch back to radar, the worst impacts, you're basically seeing them now in this band kind of along the Cape here, where I think you'll see the worst weather between, say, 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. So 10 to 2 in that region. Further north for Tallahassee, I think you're talking about the worst weather. When this band pulls through here, this band is going to come through at around 2 to 6. So that's, I think, when your worst weather is going to be, the potential for those sustained winds of 20 plus miles an hour, occasional gusts to tropical storm force. For Panama City, again, you're probably going to see the worst weather, I'd say between 1 and 4 o'clock as this kind of core of Fred moves north into that area. And for Mariana, I'd say, again, probably 3 to 6 o'clock is the worst weather. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm going to check, let's see, tornado threat in Leon County. Yes, we're under a tornado watch. There's not currently any tornado warnings. Just let me pull up just let me double check that there's absolutely not any tornado warnings currently. No tornado warnings currently for Tallahassee, but you're under a watch, so we need to be able to seek shelter if a tornado warning is issued. Tallahassee is going to get winds in the afternoon, again, probably gusting to right around tropical storm force in some of these bigger bands that come through. When this band arrives in, call it 3 to 6 hours, that's when I think the worst of the weather will be, and you'll see some, wind gusts in the 35 to 45 mile per hour range. That'll be pretty similar for Jefferson County as well, maybe a little bit less there. Yeah, FSU area, again, that's going to be, you're going to get some low-end tropical storm force wind gusts, I think, in these bands. Okay, I think that just about covers all of the questions. I'm going to wrap it up there. Tropical Storm Fred is not the worst tropical threat we've ever faced. We've seen worse, but take this seriously and do have a way of receiving flood warnings, tornado warnings, and take action if you receive one of those warnings to secure life and property. Thank you for watching, and this has been Dr. Ryan Truchelut with WeatherTiger. Keep watching the skies and stay safe, North Florida.